Welcome to the Public Technology Institute's Professional Development Series, a free monthly webinar series designed to connect local government IT professionals with the people, conversations, and ideas that matter most. PTI is the only national organization dedicated exclusively to supporting local government technology through consulting, education, and a peer-connected community. We help you lead smarter, grow faster, and stay ahead of what's next. In this month's episode, Navigating the Road Ahead, we will dive into the tech trends in local government that we've seen so far this year, as well as which trends to watch out for in the coming months.
Welcome to today's webcast, the PTI Mid-Year Review and Forecast, a look back and a look ahead. I'm Barry Condrey, Director of Technology Consulting for the Public Technology Institute. I'm excited to serve as the host for today's webcast. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a great session today. This webinar is brought to you by the Public Technology Institute, PTI. A bit of background on the Public Technology Institute. PTI was formed back in the 70s to support and encourage the use of technology in government. Today, we're a division of Fusion Learning Partners, a nonprofit organization with a very similar mission, formed in Minnesota in the 1970s. PTI has three areas that we focus on. First is education. We have certificate and certification programs for government CIOs and leaders. Second is membership. This furthers collaboration and sharing with resources such as this webinar and our national conferences. And the third area is technology consulting. This is where we help governments build the foundation with engagements focused on strategic planning, cybersecurity assessments, policy work, and similar efforts. You can find out more about us and our annual conference coming up in November at www.pti.org. Registration is now open. You can also check our website for information on our awards programs, including our new award, the Alan R. Shark Technology Leadership Award for Distinguished Service. So just a few housekeeping notes for you before we start. The PTI webinar series releases a new webinar on the fourth Tuesday of every month. The webinars can be found in the PTI Community Hub at community.pti.org. On August 6th, PTI members will be invited to a Tech Talk virtual meeting. This is where we will continue the conversation and dive a bit deeper into it. Go to the Community Hub and visit the PTI event calendar to add the Tech Talk to your calendar and access the Tech Talk meeting links. Our Community Hub is a resource we are building out for you. You'll find my Govit2Go blog there, as well as other webinars and resources. Again, you can find that at community.pti.org. Okay, so on with the webinar. Joining me today to discuss this topic is my good friend, Adam Frumkin. Adam is the Chief Information Officer with the Franklin County, Ohio Data Center, and he's also the chair of the Public Technology Institute Leadership Council. Adam, welcome to the webinar. Please take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us about your background.
It's great to be here today, Barry. I really appreciate this opportunity. As Barry mentioned, I am the CIO for the Franklin County, Ohio Data Center. That's a misnomer. We are the technology service provider for the entire county. We have 1.4 million residents. We have 6,800 employees that we service, and that's everything from network to desktops and everything in between, including cybersecurity and even election security. So we do a lot, and that's what we're here for, and we have fun doing it. That's the best part about it.
Yeah, I don't hear fun mentioned very often in relation to CIO duties, Adam, so that's refreshing. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. You know, in our January 2026 webinar, the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, otherwise known as NASCIO, and the Public Technology Institute, PTI, co-presented our annual preview of the issues and priorities that will impact state and local government in the coming year. Doug Robinson, the Executive Director of NASCIO, and Daryl Polk, the Director of Education for PTI, explored the trends and pain points as well as opportunities for 2026. The webinar can be found in our Community Hub at community.pti.org, and the webinar highlighted key findings from NASCIO and PTI research based on surveys, interviews with technology executives, and what we're hearing from our private sector partners. We're here today with Adam to do a mid-year check-in, to take a look at the first half of the year and get some hints about how we can move forward in the second half of the year. So Adam, again, welcome to the webinar. Let's get things kicked off here. How are things in Franklin County? Any big initiatives or impacts that you're wrestling with at this point in the year?
Well, like I said, being a county CIO is fun, and I truly do mean it. I enjoy my job, but we do have major projects that are always going on. Just recently, we completed a rollout of an entire new county-wide phone system, replacing a legacy phone system that had been in place for over 20 years. We are in the process of replacing our network core, our firewalls, and let's not forget the one thing that we're all excited about is ADA and ADA remediation. And within that, we launched a new content management system, or for most people, it's a new web presence. And now we're focused on looking at social media and ADA and social media. So it's busy here. And that's just the top three. That doesn't even include some of the other things that we're doing for the sheriff's department or for Office on Aging or anybody else that we have around the county.
I can remember not so fondly having to replace phone systems when I was former CIO. I'm former CIO for Chesterfield County, and literally a forklift upgrade. And when I say a forklift upgrade, I mean it took a forklift to get the phone switch out and then put another one in. And we've saved money in the capital program for 10 years to be able to replace legacy phone equipment like that. So I can fully appreciate the gravity of that, as well as, it sounds like you're replacing your entire network between your network core and your phone system and your firewalls. That's a lot.
It has
a
a cycle to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything has a cycle to it. And the neat thing about, I'll say this, the neat thing about the phone system is we actually are doing soft phones. So not everybody has, like myself, I do not have a phone on my desk at all.
Mhm.
It rings either on my computer or my cell phone, my iPad. So we've gone to soft phones as well. So it's not just updating technology; it's a whole new paradigm.
Right. Yeah. I did a webinar with a customer not too long ago, and they were talking about the priority that people are placing on being able to separate and leverage personal and professional profiles through one device, right? That's becoming, nobody wants to put a phone on a desk anymore. Everybody wants you to use your personal cell or whatever, and that's becoming like a really big deliverable in that space. So I never did. I had a phone on my desk for 20 years. I never really knew how to use it. I had so many buttons on the thing, and I had a manual that looked like a Bible. So it was so thick. I can make phone calls. So it's a total waste of technology on me. But, and all this modernization that you're doing actually does sort of fit into the priorities that we talked about for 2026. In that January webinar, Daryl laid out what we had collected as the top 10 priorities for local government. And, no surprise, cybersecurity and AI were 1 and 2. Okay, so cybersecurity has been number one for 5, 6 years. AI has come up in the last few years to be number 2. And then number 3 was budget and cost control. So, which we did find interesting, and I wanted to get your take on that. And then we go down to modernization, which is clearly you're very invested in, is number 4. Identity access management, digital government, accessibility, you're working on that. Data management at number 8, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Cloud services, and then consolidation. So, Daryl made a point that the top 3 were very close in the survey results. And nobody's going to be surprised by cyber and AI, but budget being in the top 3 is important to note. It's not usually in the top 3. It's usually in the bottom 5 somewhere. We think it's one of the most pressing issues for the first half of the year, from what our customers are telling us and what our networks are telling us. So that we feel so much like that the March webinar in this series was focused on budget and cost control and how to talk about a budget, how to do a budget, how to have a relationship with your budget officer, and people can go back and look at that. So one of the first things we hear with engaging with local government officials is about budget. Daryl referred to it as a churn of multiple sources, a trickle down of uncertainty from federal and state sources. So Adam, what are you seeing in the first half of the year from a budget and cost control perspective? What's going on in Franklin with this?
Whatever you thought was the norm is never the norm anymore. And, whoever coined the term change is inevitable is right. really what we need to do is, because of budget constraints and the change in budgets and the churn to that perspective, is we have to be better at change management. One of the things that we're looking at and we're seeing is, for instance, last year, we were asked to take a 2.5% cut in our budget. And that's repeating again this year, another 2.5%. And that's really because the sales tax is down, other things are down, and any grants or funding coming from the state or the federals are down, from the federal government are down as well. And so, that term we're truly doing less with, or doing more with less, is a truth. We're trying to balance, how do we maintain the things we do every day that are, and I don't call them customers, I call them partners, that our partners expect us to deliver from a technology perspective in order for them to do their jobs so that they can impact the residents in a positive way. That's becoming constrained. And we have to look at, how do we keep all those lights on? Or do we take a different approach to doing it, and that may cost us less than what it's costing us today? And then when you also talk about budget constraints or budget changes, you're also then taking a look at one of the, if you think about pillars, you now have to look at, is your risk posture too much, which is what's costing you more money because of our cyber approach? And do we take a lesser risk posture? And are we willing to accept that in order to afford some of the other innovative technologies that we're trying to put in place? And that's a dichotomy and a dilemma at the same time. And, one step, and as a CIO and been a long-term CIO with 17 years of experience, it's hard, because cybersecurity went from, and you're worried about your budget and doing cost controls and then looking at your risk posture. Then comes along the renewal for your cybersecurity insurance, and that tells you that you can't change your risk posture. So then you're saying, well, I can't save money there. So, there's a dilemma that is going on right now from this whole trickle-down uncertainty. And it's not just federal and state, it's everywhere. It's even internal into our own county.
Right? Like the ability to do change management, not just to experience change, but to be able to manage through change, and then the ability to actually have a risk-based posture and to know what your risk is, know what your risk tolerance is. I'll guarantee you that 90% of organizations, 90% of the local governments couldn't tell you what their risk tolerance is. And they might think they know it when they see it, but they haven't quantified it. And so in a situation like that, you really are sort of flying blind, right? If you have to cut someplace and it's going to increase risk, but if you can't really quantify that and say what the impact of the business might be, then you're really you're not working from a position of strength when it comes to talking about your budget with city and county leaders, change management professional. But that is something that people that have invested in that, it's paying dividends now, because there's so much change, as you said, in so many different areas of our operations. Predictions from the last webinar was that budget was going to increase as a priority, taking more and more time from the CIO in the second half of 2026. And we were concerned about that because, CIOs don't have a lot of spare cycles laying around, right? And all of a sudden, recognizing it as that or not, so what are you doing for the second half of the calendar year? I know your fiscal year starts January 1st, so you're actually in the second half of your fiscal year right now, starting, right? So how are you planning, and what are you doing for the second half of the year given this? Are you spending more time on the budget front?
Yeah, we are. Not only are we planning for the 27 cycle, but we're also, looking at it and doing and I'm going to say a true in our accounting environment, and understanding what truly is left. Everything from vacancy credits to projects that may have gotten canceled, projects that haven't started yet. Does it make sense to delay those or not do them and utilize those funds in other areas that may have a higher priority or more importance than doing or finishing that project? Validating what the business needs. I mean, the thing about CIOs, and I'm going to use this term because one of my chiefs that reports up through me said this, is it's great for you to be the CIO, but you got to be the CEO. And what I mean by that is the chief external officer, talking to the businesses and the partners and validating and understanding what they need to have an impact or meet the needs of the residents, and how we can do that, and then balance that against what we have available to us and how we're going to be able to deliver those services that are already needed or already have, let alone be innovative to turn new ones on. And, AI is great. And I'm going to say this, you stated it a second ago, cybersecurity and AI aren't cheap. Cybersecurity, to that point, you have to understand your risk posture. And I think it's important. And as we go through, to answer the part of the question, as we go through this last half of the year, or second and third or fourth quarter, wherever everybody is at this point in their cycle, or just the second half of the year, people truly have to look at, do you understand your risk posture? And change management comes into that from this point is, do you understand that if you don't understand your risk posture and you start cutting things, you've made a change that can impact someone. So the question is, are you using change management in a way that you lessen the impact, even though you have to make decisions from a budgetary perspective?
Right.
And there's ways to do that. And unfortunately, what I've seen, and I hate to say this from some of my peers across the country that I talk to, they're not filling positions because they're utilizing vacancy credits to fund projects, which then in the long run, honestly, hurts them, because then they run up against things that are coming in new, or technologies that are new, or they need someone to own that product or curate that technology, and then they don't have somebody to do it. And then you're asking people to do more than what they normally do. So it's a vicious cycle. So you have to understand, change management is, you can manage the change or let the change manage you. There's your choice.
So that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
When you start using vacancy money from the salary budget line items to fund either operational needs or project needs, because then, what happens the next year when the budget management office says, well, look at all the stuff you got done. Just, we don't need to adjust your budget. And you're like, well, yeah, but I wasn't able to hire anybody because, I used the vacancy savings. Oh, okay.
Well,
We can do that. We can do that another year.
I'll
So,
make it worse. I'll make it worse. You then go fill the positions because you now have a need for them, and you do that, and everything you implemented now has a renewal.
Yes,
and now you have to renew it, and you don't have the funds to renew it.
You don't have the funds to do it either. But that some budget managers won't let CIOs do that. If you use the sort of the big bucket approach to budgeting, then you can get away with that sometimes because they just look at the bottom line number. But some budget organizations won't let you do that. But you mentioned risk management again, and I think we're going to have to do one of these webinars on like a common sense and minimal viable governance way to come up with, to assess your risk tolerance in your organization. Because when you say, what's your risk tolerance, people get scared. Like it's almost like, I don't know how to do that. And it's complicated. Nobody understands it. The business doesn't understand it. And you really we need to do some common sense, practical advice about how to establish what your risk tolerance is, because you're taking a 2.5, you're taking your second year of 2.5. I have other customers that have taken multiple years of cuts and can't hire. They've got opens, but they can't hire. So it's either flat or down. And let's face it, when a budget is flat, it's really down because it's not accounting for inflation, and all the maintenance contracts and stuff go up. So I think we need to do something about that from a webinar perspective. But let's get back to the survey for just a moment. Now, we made an observation in January. There was this disconnect that I want to get your take on, and it's about AI and cyber to some degree, but AI and cyber 1 and 2. Data management came in at number 8. Now, technology leaders seem to understand that a solid data environment is a precursor to success with AI. Right? Like garbage in, garbage out. You don't get your data straight. You don't have your data house in order. You're going to have cyber risks, and you're going to struggle to really be productive with AI. And yet it's so much farther down the priority list. Daryl referred to data as a quiet desire of organizations to be data driven, like that it was at number 8. Seems like a disconnect to me. What do you make of this?
I'm 100% in agreement with you. It is a huge disconnect. When I saw the list, I couldn't believe that data management was actually number 8. because reality is AI and data management are one in today's world. You cannot have success. You said it is the precursor to a successful AI is a solid data environment. And a solid data environment means you have good data management and data. You're curating your data in the right way and setting up the right tags and or metadata and everything else that goes with it in order to put AI in. And so I'll change this around a little bit from a perspective that the reason that a lot of my peers are having trouble with AI now is the fact that they didn't look at it from a data management perspective first. And they took the political pressure. We got to get AI out and put AI in. And then they got AI turned on and realized that it was garbage in, garbage out because they're utilizing data that's not curated properly. And I'll say this, nor were we ever, prior to the AI evolution or revolution, however you want to put it, no one really cared about data as long as it was there when you needed it. And now you're talking about data as a precursor to anything you do, to be data driven. And I love Daryl's comment about the quiet desire of organizations to be data driven. But reality is it's not a quiet desire. If you want to be AI literate and AI forward, you have to be data driven. And the only way to be data driven is to clean your data properly. And that's really the precursor project to be able to, before you turn AI on and let it loose to the level that it's useful. Because if you don't have that, it's not going to be useful.
So it sounds like, the AI being a priority is something that's being brought to the CIO, like the elected officials, I have other customers where the departments are bringing AI projects to the CIO and saying, we just bought this, put it on the network and let's use it. So it's like, it's this big priority, but it's not a priority because the CIOs necessarily want it. It's a priority because the business is demanding it. But the data, nobody's asking for the data. They're asking for the CIO. So it's almost like, it's like what you were saying about change management. Change can happen to you, or you can make change. So change happening to you is the AI. Making change is what you have to do with the data.
Now I'll say this from an AI perspective, being the CIO, if someone came to me with a legitimate business case that they could use AI to have something function better within the data that they already have, I'm all for that. But reality is, in order to make it better and for it to run smoother and actually make an impact in a positive perspective, you have to have the data. Right. So then if you change and start that, and I was literally in a meeting right before this one, we were having a conversation around AI and data, and they have an innovation group that is actually implementing AI business cases and then figuring out what data is needed for it to be successful because they know it will help the business if they use AI in this way. So they're doing it backwards. Still doesn't make data management number 8 on the list. But
yeah, right.
That I told them I felt that they were a microcosm to the world of government technology and AI.
Yeah, I've got a blog post out there about, it's actually 2 about why AI projects fail. And most of them go into pilot, they can show all kinds of success, but can't scale to production because the data, and one of the main reasons is because the data environment in production, it won't support them. And nobody planned
100%.
For that during pilot. So yeah, that all really rings home. And I think you've actually already talked about this other theme that came up in the survey from earlier this year. The key word was uncertainty, right? Like, and we talked about this last year, that we are in an unprecedented time in terms of uncertain landscape between AI and the federal funding and all the changes at the federal level, and it all just trickles downhill, right? Like the Fed sneeze and local governments catch a cold. So sometimes it can take a while to funnel down, but this is driven by all kinds of different factors. And this leading in uncertainty requires leadership skills, right? And we talk about this, and Daryl talked about this in the webinar. that it's really a good time to hone your leadership skills from a technology perspective. What do you think is most important for government technology leaders in this environment? What should they be focused on as they deal with uncertainty?
Well, I kind of touched on this earlier, but where we really truly have to worry about or focus on for uncertainty is in government is the business side of it. What are the businesses or business partners or customers or agencies, however you want to put it, in government doing? What services do they provide? And the uncertainty from a funding perspective then drives the technology side of that. And we have to, in uncertain times, we have to, and I'm going to say this, and it's always been there, and now it's becoming even more important, is we have to be business focused and look for technology to change or correct or aid a business problem versus providing technology and then knowing that it will affect or solve a business problem. We have to actually be, when you deal with budget constraints and uncertainty and funding issues, you have to be driven towards the business and what the business needs and implementing the technology that surrounds that, and then look for innovative ways to make it better. But you're driving innovation based on the business needs and the residents or the citizens versus just doing business or trying to do technology.
So never technology for the sake of technology, right?
Never. No. I mean, we need to think entrepreneurial. We need to think from a business perspective. And how do we drive a business impact through technology without focusing on technology first?
It's been something that I have to say, I have heard people talking more about business outcomes, right? Like as a driver, like what business outcome do you want to drive? And then what do we need to use to get you there? And there's a problem with this, though, for a lot of, not your organization, because I know your organization fairly well, but a lot of organizations don't have an effective way of managing business relationships, business relationship management, BRM, right? And if you don't have that, if you're just an order taker and you're just saying, would you like fries with that? Then, and you don't have that partnership, then that becomes hard to focus on business outcomes when the business doesn't see you as a partner because you don't have a BRM function. And so maybe you could spend a couple of minutes just talking to us about how you've been successful with business relationship management, because this is becoming more and more important. I mean, I talk to people all the time that are trying to improve their relationship with their business units and having, limited success. So what do you have to say about that?
So I would say that, as a CIO or director of technology or whatever your title is, if you lead the technology for your government entity, seek out, and I'm not trying to do a shameless plug or anything like that, seek out the Business Relationship Management Institute, BRMI. Even if you don't take any of the courses, at least read their website and maybe get one of the books. But you are the chief business relationship manager. That's why, one of my team members joked about me being the CEO, the chief external officer, because we have to build the relationships. If you don't have and I'm going to say it this way, if you don't have the opportunity that I do in a large county like I am, where I have a team that does that, and we've changed it now, it's no longer business relationship management, it's partner experience management. And the idea behind that was business relationship management. We were building the relationship with the partners, but then we became, if you're not proactive, you become reactive and become order takers. So as a partner experience perspective, how do we make the experience of that partner better? And we focus on that side of it. And whether it's me, if I'm a small entity and it's just me, or in one other person, or if you're lucky like I am and I have a team to do that, you have to, and you still have to lead that team in a way that focuses on the experience that the businesses are having and what they need to be successful. If you're not making them successful and thinking and helping them, and I'm going to say this very carefully, if you're not reaching into them and understanding their business, and this is the BRM function and the partner experience function, if you don't understand their business, you can't make them successful. You are an order taker. So
Right.
the goal here is understanding the business of those that you support or supply services to. And if you understand their business, then you can service them better because you're servicing them based on a business challenge, a business need, or a business change versus just driving technology.
So the irony of this is that, we've been selling business relationship management as an effective practice of technology leaders for years, right? Like the BRM Institute has been around a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not new at this.
No.
And I've actually written, since I've retired, I've written 2 strategic plans for customers, and I've put in the strategic plan to establish a business relationship management function, and I get pushback from people outside of IT. Like, why does IT, need to do that? And so pushback I didn't expect. So I think there's some marketing and there's some salesmanship that's got to go on as you want to invest your organization's resources in improving BRM. The irony is if you'd done it 5 years ago, you could leverage it now to better manage this uncertainty in this change environment. And now it's almost like changing the wheels and the tires as the car's going down the road, right? Because you really need it now, and people want to focus on it. So I don't know.
Exactly.
One of those things that maybe we should have sold harder
Well,
5 years ago.
I don't know if it's selling harder or did we train our leaders the right way? Because I'll say this, there are new leaders that are coming in that are understanding this and it's being taught. We teach it in the CGCIO program about being business focused and relationships and things like that. But there are people that are best way to say it. There are people our age or a little bit younger than us that have grown up through technology and they've always been on the technology side. I've been very fortunate. I know you have been too. We understood the business side and the technology side. So we were able to grow the business piece and the technology at the same time. But not everybody's had that opportunity. They've grown up through the technology and that's what they
That's right.
know.
And that's more often the case than not.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the local governments in the United States are small. I mean, they can be very small. There are very few that are the size of yours or the size of the one that I used to work for. And normally in those small organizations, it's the network manager or the application programmer that, IT director retires. The network manager comes in one day, finds out they're the new IT director.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that. And that's what the CGCIO program is. You said shameless plug for CGCIO. That's what they're focused on, is really improving that level of technology leadership for all the people who, whatever your path that led you to be the top technology person in the organization, that program is focused on helping you. And it is focused on business outcomes. So it's a really good thing that
You're
you
right.
mentioned there.
Because, there's the county next door to us has 2 people in the whole IT department. There are people that only have one and they're
Oh,
everything.
right.
They're everything for everything. And it's hard to break free of being an order taker when you're the 1 or 2 only people in the whole county
Yeah.
servicing the entire government entity.
We did some
So
work for a county in Texas that they had I mean,
mhm,
zero.
zero.
IDB
I
was
know that county.
yeah, you know who I'm talking about, and they will remain nameless, but it was an
Yeah.
elected official that was actually, knighted as the CIO, and we had to come in and help them with some foundational work, as you know, and I mean, so there's a lot more like that than there are like Franklin County. So that's one
Yeah.
thing that PTI really does try to focus on, is helping the smaller and medium-sized counties. So let's talk about the areas where you expect to see the most pressure in 2026 and how you plan to handle that.
So pressure number one, budget constraint
Okay.
and driving technology. I know that it was number 3 in the last survey. I honestly think it's going to move up. I think budget and budget processing, budget understanding, being creative with budgets to meet the need of the government entity. I think that's is going to become a top priority. I don't think AI is going to go away. I really don't. I'm not expecting it to.
Are you seeing
Um,
pressure with AI, though, is the question? Not, we
it
get that it's a
is.
priority, but is AI pressure a thing?
it is when you, and I'm going to say this carefully and no disrespect to any of my electeds. People have a tendency to go to conferences and things like that and say, and here they're doing X, Y, and Z with AI, or you should turn AI on because it could do Y. And what we're finding is there's a pressure to turn AI on, but there's not a pressure to help. There's not the flip side to build the business cases properly to make AI impactful or have a business related result. And so I think what we're going to see is when we talk about pressures, it's AI becoming an outcome. What is the outcome of utilizing AI? Not just turning AI on, but what outcomes can we get from it? Especially when we move from just standard AI and to more of a quantum, even getting into quantum and things like that. Yeah, I know it makes your head spin and your eyes roll.
Let's talk about Q-Day,
yeah,
right?
And I'm not even go there. I don't even want to go there. But when we talk about those things, the pressure is there. But the pressure really truly needs to be on what's the impact of the business result of the technology that we're dealing with. So it's not just budget; it's the results. We've always been in a results or a KPI type environment. We've always been told to keep KPIs or make KPIs. The question is, I honestly believe over the last 5 to 7 years, we've had KPIs, but no one's paid attention to them. And now we have to tell our story through those KPIs and what the results are that we're driving and delivering. And the only way we're going to make it through some of the pressures that we have, like budget and things like that, is if we tell the story the right way so that they see the true results that are coming from it, and they'll continue to fund technology differently. And I'm going to say it, they need to fund technology differently than the populace of the government entity. If you take a 2.5% or a 3% or a 5%, and I know another county government that's taking a 10% cut this year, but everybody's taking it across the board. Reality is you have to now look at, okay, what does that mean? And technology, as we said at the beginning of our webinar, technology costs are going up. They're not going down. And we can talk about the whole advent of data centers and the fact that we can't get laptops, and the cost of laptops. Each laptop went up $2,000 this year, and going into 27, and they're going to go up higher. That's a cost that we can't ignore, and it takes extra cost away from other things we could do. So there's a lot of pressure on us.
Right. I think you're right. I think there's a certain FOMO that's going on here. People have a fear of missing out on AI and on new technology, and to some degree, some of the other tools that we're seeing emerging now. But on the flip side of that, okay, the fear of missing out, it's easy to have a fear of missing out. And then you take a look at what you're talking about, which is if the cuts are flat across the board, the needs aren't flat across the board. The business priorities aren't flat across the board. So that becomes a sticking point. And I think CIOs need to be aware of that paradox and maybe work that internally with the way they deliver services like yourself. So, well, this has been great, Adam. We're almost out of time, believe it or not. So what I'd like to do is I want to give you just last couple of minutes for final word of advice for the audience before we wrap up here.
To be quick, honestly, my best word of advice is understand who you serve from a technology perspective, understand their business and what they do. And I'm going to say this, understand the impact that they have to the resident or the citizen of your government entity. If you understand that, you can better do your job and make better, and I'm going to say it, better data-driven decisions based on the fact of what results you deliver have a direct effect on the people outside the four walls of the building that you work in.
I'll never forget when I worked with the fire department once upon a time, and they showed me the difference between like showing up to scenes 20 seconds later than if we showed up 20 seconds earlier or 20 seconds later at this event or that event or that event. Here's the lives that could have been saved, right? So it's like that absolutely cemented for me that you have to understand impacts, right? When people ask for things, you need to understand why, you need to understand the impact. But that all comes back to the relationships. And I know you're a big relationships guy. Maybe we can do another webinar at some point and really dive into, peel back the layers of that BRM onion a little bit. But, you talked about leveraging the relationships. It's never too late to start building those relationships. You talked about being good at change management, right? Like, don't just let change be something that happens to you, right? And you talked about, business outcomes and understanding those. I think topics like that, when CIOs, technology leaders keep them in the forefront, I think it really helps them navigate uncertain times. And that's what we're looking at. That's the TLDR on this whole thing is the second half of the year is not going to be any more certain than the first half. And we're going to continue to see pressures that come along with the priorities that we've already established. So,
yeah, and I think one thing to always remember is what got you here today may not be what it's going to get you there tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. So don't be afraid to do things differently, right? Look for different ways. Okay. Well, this has been great information, and this is so important for technology leadership at the local level. And it's really important, but I'm afraid we've got to wrap this up. For the audience, if you've enjoyed this webinar and you want to hear more, and if you're a PTI member, you can join us August 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to continue the conversation. We're going to get into this a little deeper, another level of detail here, share some stories, get some actual on the street experiences from some other localities. And you can go to the PTI or community.pti.org and get access to that tech talk. Adam, thank you so much for being with us today. And I would also like to thank the Public Technology Institute for making this important webcast discussion possible. Be on the lookout for the 2026 PTI survey. Fill it out and make an impact with us. Help us make an impact with the rest of local government, because people will take this survey and they will use it in their fiscal, budgetary, strategic planning coming up into their next fiscal cycle. Check out pti.org for more information about PTI, particularly about our large conference coming up in November in Minnesota, and our awards programs, educational opportunities, and assistance we can provide through our consulting services. Thanks again, Adam. Thanks again, audience. Everybody, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching. To explore all of PTI's learning opportunities and resources, visit us at pti.org. Tune in to next month's webinar about succession planning, both how to plan for and become your department's next leader. The webinar will be released on Tuesday, August 24th.